behead and torture his victims. He also loved to annihilate all the men of a community and take the women and children as sex slaves. He was proud of the use of terms like annihilate. But the International Institute for Muslim Thought could get nowhere on its own with the promotion of Islamophobia, with the promotion of a word that would get unbelievers to astonishingly gag themselves, to get us to curb our own freedom of speech. The International Institute for Muslim Thought needed something more. Like the Koch brothers, it needed allies. It needed an infrastructure. And it got it rapidly. First, there were the 28 other organizations on the Muslim Brotherhood's list of North American allies. And soon those allies pulled in others, very big others. They won over the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, a 57-member gargantua, a giant, a behemoth that you have never heard of. It's a body that claims to represent all of the world's 1.6 billion Muslims, and it does. It's an organization that throws a summit of the heads of state of all of its 57 nation members every 3 years, heads of state of 57 nations. It's a group that also throws regular meetings of foreign ministers of 57 nations. This is a top-level group with all the power that oil money can buy. It's a group that constitutes the biggest voting bloc in the United Nations. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation lobbied the UN year after year to force its members to pass laws punishing Islamophobia, with what the Organization for Islamic Cooperation called deterrent punishment, severe punishment. And the Organization for Islamic Cooperation had weight. Soon the British government held hearings on Islamophobia. The United Nations convened a session on Islamophobia, a session keynoted by UN head Kofi Annan, who was famous at the time. A bevy of non-governmental organizations like Britain's Runnymede Trust threw themselves into the Islamophobia campaign with all their might and main. CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, started issuing an annual Islamophobia report. And I have gone head-to-head with CARE, and believe me, they lie, and they show no compunctions about lying. They tried to end my publishing career in 1998. They claimed that a chapter in my book, The Lucifer Principle, was filled with inaccuracies. They claimed that quotes from the Quran were not quotes from the Quran at all. When I researched that chapter, taking a month to do it, it turned out that the quotes were actually the quotes in context in the Quran and the Hadith were even worse than I had made them out to be in the first edition of the Lucifer Principle. They were lying that when they said those quotes did not exist. So CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, started issuing an annual Islamophobia report. The Organization for Islamic Cooperation started an Islamophobia monitoring arm and issued an annual Islamophobia report. The Organization for Islamic Cooperation has a $17.5 million annual budget and is able to tap the budgets of all of its 57 Muslim member countries, including their fabulous oil wealth and their lobbying and PR operations in Washington, D.C., which are strong, very strong, supported by $100 billion of money between 1948 and today. $100 billion from just one country, Saudi Arabia. Imagine the money that comes in from the 56 other countries. And in 2010, an initiative began to teach anti-Islamophobia to European and American grammar schools. A campaign supported by organizations like UNESCO. But there was a problem. Everything that the anti-Islamophobia groups told you and me about Islam was false. Islam is not a peaceful religion. Far from it. And militant Islam refuses to live at peace with other religions. Ask any imam and you'll hear that Islam is dominant. That word dominant, which shows up thousands of times, has political consequences. It means that our entire constitutional system of government is, quote, unjust and tyrannical, close quote. It means that you and I must be forced to live under Sharia law. We must be forced to live under a government modeled on Muhammad's military dictatorship in the city of Medina, where Muhammad had been taken in as a house guest and ended up killing off those of his hosts who disagreed with his murderousness, his militantism. The Muslim Brotherhood's Islam means that you and I must live under the only set of laws ever given to mankind by God himself, given through God's one and only true prophet, Muhammad. We must forget man-made laws. We must forget our foolish and sinful notions of freedom, democracy, and secularism. Is this Islamophobia campaign working? Is it getting us to dismantle our own, quote, miserable, close quote, civilization with, quote, our own hands, close quote? Is it weakening us so we can fall prey to Islam? Roughly 50 major organizations from the UN to major academic groups have signed on to the anti-Islamophobia program. Roughly 50 organizations have said that taking the Quran, the Hadith, and the story of Muhammad's life seriously is a form of bigotry and racism. Roughly 50 organizations that feel they are dedicated to knowledge and truth have committed themselves to ignorance on one of the most important topics of our time, militant Islam. Thanks to the paranoia of the left, we know about the Koch brothers conspiracy. And thanks to the paranoia of the right, we know about the Muslim Brotherhood, its plan for North America, and the real deal behind the anti-Islamophobia campaign. Thanks to the radical right, we know about the Muslim Brotherhood's plan for, quote, eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their own hands and the hands of the believers so that Western civilization, is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions. Sometimes even paranoid nuts are right. Sometimes we owe thanks to the folks on the other side of the political divide. Sometimes the left has to thank the right, and the right has to thank the left. We owe them both our thanks. This is Howard the Humongous, speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make, or want to know why, ask how. And now, for that slimy, sleazy, sneaky, seditious, impossible to find little off button, I think I've got it.